There we go. So welcome to today's coaching call with myself to go through, and for those of you that are new to this session, I pick one topic and just go a little bit deeper on that one topic. So as you know, we've got the Q&A calls, we have the different coaching calls, and we have the end of month call coming up. I think, is it end of this week or next week? So this session, I've chosen to speak about pixels, really exciting area of Facebook advertising, but also a massively misunderstood one as well. So I think there was a question in the group earlier, actually from Erwin, good to see you here actually, just asking about how should I set up my pixel. And also I see this question come up so often that I figured, you know what, it's something where I just need to cover that back off. I've talked about many times before, but I want to kind of demonstrate the options available to you so that when it comes down to figuring out what to do with the pixel. So, you know, some of the questions are, do I need more than one pixel on my store? Do I need more than one pixel per category? Do I need more than one pixel per customer avatar, et cetera, et cetera? And I think that this kind of comes down to maybe misunderstanding what the pixel is and how it works and how to get the best out of the pixel. So one thing I shared recently was how I see the pixel as almost like a super lookalike as well, especially when you've got a lot of data behind it. Some people will talk about seasoning the pixel and, you know, dropping some salt in there. It's not how it works, but, you know, we can explain that as well. Now, the first thing about the pixel is it is a line of code. So, you know, when you install the pixel, you have your code that goes on the website. Yes, that is your pixel. So a lot of people just misunderstand that the pixel is that line of code that goes in. Yes, it is the pixel. That's the thing that collects data. But where that sends data is also called the pixel. And this is a confusion I think that a lot of people have, is some people rightly say that the pixel only collects and passes the data, therefore it doesn't store anything. Technically, you're absolutely right. But the pixel also stores data, which now should confuse you slightly. The thing is, and then the demonstration of this is, if you ever have a look at Facebook analytics, you can't look at your data by ad account or by business manager. It's at the pixel level. So no matter how many ad accounts are attached to your one pixel, the data is always at the pixel level. So what that tells me, and what that should tell you, is that yes, the pixel is a piece of code that just passes data from your website back to Facebook, but the pixel is also passing that data into a container. So what that means is, at the website level, if you have a pixel or more than one pixel installed, you know, some people do that as well, that pixel is collecting data in a database. So if you want to see that in action, go into Facebook's analytics tool and have a look at the data that you can actually see. So Facebook Analytics will show you visitors outside of Facebook. It will show you the lifetime value, if that's something you want to look at, different cohorts. You can look at your funnel steps, etc. But it's always at the pixel level. So that's one thing to understand, that the pixel is a data collector, but the pixel is also a data storage. So what that means is, when we talk about sharing pixels across different ad accounts and kind of what we can do with you know, reusing that pixel data. So one common question is, if I have this pixel set up and I have one ad account and I share that to another ad account, then, you know, all my data has to start again, etc. One of the common use cases is if you have an ad account banned, but you have a pixel from another ad account and you create a new ad account, will that new ad account carry data forward or not? The short answer is yes. So let's say, for example, let's say this is our ad account now. So the pixel data is up here. So the code has passed data into our pixel database or storage collection, and that is passing data to and from your ad account. Now, when you first set up a pixel, it's attached to one ad account, right? So that's just in terms of the setup. Now, let's say we introduce a new ad account here and we share that pixel. So this is shared. This is owned. So this ad account owns this pixel. This ad account has been shared the pixel. And let's say we've got another ad account here that's shared the pixel. So in this example, you could say that these two new ad accounts they're going to have to start again with the data. And if this is a brand new account, then absolutely, that's right. Because although data sits at the pixel level, when you start running campaigns, all that data is accumulating at your ad account level. So you're running these campaigns day by day, you're increasing spend, you're doing your optimizations, testing different audiences and products. The pixel data is being stored here, but it's being tailored for this ad account, which means if, let's say, in 6 months' time, you've spent 100K on advertising, for example, all that advertising data is stored here, but it's also stored here at the pixel level because your website, which is in between here, is collecting and passing the data. So what happens is, let's say 6 months down the line, you've spent 100K and you push that pixel into ad account 2 as a shared pixel from this ad account to there. So now this has no data. This one has spent 100K. This one has spent 0K. So it has no starting base. One question could be, does that literally just start from 0? Where's all my data and et cetera, et cetera? It starts from 0 at the ad account level because you haven't spent anything. But guess what? The data here is passed here, especially if it's the same website now, and you've got 2 ad accounts running the spending to one website. Then that data, what Facebook does is says, right, I know that this pixel has already been installed on this website. It's also installed on this website. Therefore, I'm going to pass the data down to the ad account. Now, if all you did was to launch the same campaigns that you ran 100K spend here into this ad account, then all that data is going to start getting shared. And Facebook is learning a lot faster who your ideal customer is. Because bear in mind, everything you do at the pixel level, the question that Facebook is asking is, how do I find the right user that this person is looking for? So when you start that new ad account up, now let's take a different example. Let's say, for example, this ad account was male 25 to 50, and this one now is female 25 to 50. In this example, you'd rightly say, look, I've launched new campaigns here. Now, don't think that this is absolutely a recommendation. I wouldn't split by gender. This is just a broad example. But let's just say you were doing some targeting here, which was very different to what you're doing here. You could argue and say, well, my audience is completely different, so my data starts from scratch. And that's true, especially if no females have visited the website and no female data has been collected. Then if you switch from male targeting to female, then that data starts again. But if here you're targeting very similar people, I'll give you an example. So one actual use case could be that you're starting off with your US account here. You've spent 100K, you're doing your audience targeting, and then you switch to ad account 2 because now you want to go after a different market, let's say UK or Germany or Europe as a whole. The data will be shared because Facebook's looking at this at the user level. So a male 25 to 50 who bought here is probably quite similar to the male 25 to 50 who's going to buy there, even though it's a different market. So you're accelerating that knowledge already in this second ad account. So you're already ahead of yourself at this stage of being able to start finding those customers. And again, it comes down to all the data is sitting here. Now, one pixel will collect data for one website. That's all about understanding. So from Facebook's point of view, and this is something which, again, not a lot of people understand, is Facebook is collecting far more data from your website than you probably think. Put it this way, when you install Google Analytics, and you go through your breakdown reports, it can tell you behavioral, demographic, landing page data, referral data. There's so much data in Google Analytics. Well, guess what? Facebook are collecting pretty much the same. They may not present it in the same way. And for a lot of people that don't go into Facebook Analytics and don't understand how that works, you might be surprised at how much data they do know about your user, not just traffic coming in from Facebook, but traffic coming direct, email, paid search, et cetera, et cetera. All of that data is getting stored up here. So when Facebook then look at your campaigns, and I'll give you an example. So things like advanced matching, using schema data, et cetera, that's really powerful because you're putting more and more data here. So schema, for example, markup, allows you to tell Facebook a bit more about the context of the data that they're seeing. I'll give you an example. When it comes to search engine optimization, so if anyone studied SEO, one of the most basic things you do is to work on your on-site SEO. So that means if you've got an e-commerce store, then you're describing the data to Google, so that or the search engine, so that it can interpret that data. So that Google, for example, will know the difference between a website which has cinema listings versus a website that's selling products in an Ecom space, for example, all down to the markup. And Google encourage you to improve that markup by saying, hey, if you use markup in this particular way, will enhance your search results. So everyone that wants good Q&A, results in Google follows Google's script. Facebook cottoned on to this, I think maybe around 2016, 2017, and figured, hey, we can also piggyback and use that data. So what I would say is if you have a site that is set up really well for SEO, chances are you've already got a site that's well set up to take advantage of pixel-based optimization. And this comes back to another point that I've been sharing with people is when you have a pixel that has a lot of data in it, just running broad campaigns is just like running a super lookalike. And what I mean by that is this. If you imagine when you start off an ad account, you're speculating and testing, you want to test particular interests or behaviors or lookalikes or different things. You try different messages, different offers, different landing pages. So the first part of running an ad account is all about optimizing to find the right blend of what you're doing. Then when you find the right blend, you start to increase your budget. As you start to increase your budget, more data goes into your pixel. And so at that point, Facebook is now learning who is my ideal customer and how do I get my ad in front of them to get the right result. So that's the other thing that comes out of it. Then let's say you fast forward 6 months and your data at the pixel level has collected so much data. At that point, and it's more about how much you spent and how many people have you reached and how stable are your results. When you start to run broad campaigns, now broad to me is no lookalikes, no interest, no behaviors. All you're playing with is demographic and age. So if, for example, your product is only appealing to men 25 to 50, there's not much you can play with. If it's a broader product that appeals to men and women 20 to 50, for example, then broad would maybe split between male and female and maybe by age, but I'm not enhancing my targeting. When my pixel is mature and it has a lot of data, then this is what happens. When you start going broad and you don't restrain the algorithm at all, Facebook then goes back to the pixel and it says, right, here's a broad campaign. I'm targeting male 25 to 50, and that's what this advertiser wants. Let's go and look at the pixel. Let's go and look at the history of male to 25 to 50. What was the performance? What was the profile of this user? And can we find more people like that? Because all a lookalike campaign does is it takes a seed audience. It takes 100 people, 500 people, 2,000 people, and it creates a matrix, almost like a spreadsheet table, and says, these are the common characteristics. Therefore, I need to find people that have these common characteristics. Now, I think it was back in 2015, I was at Menlo Park, and and we whiteboarded it with an engineer, and he explained how this works. At the time, he said there are 1 million data points that Facebook has access to, or over 1 million. And every time you upload a custom audience to create a lookalike, their algorithm tries to find commonalities. So that's why it's important to have a good volume of people in your custom audience, but it also looks at how many of those commonalities occur. So that's why it's important to have a high quality. Then it figures out, right, here's my seed audience, and Facebook looks at it internally, and then says, right, from the population, so if you're looking at a 1% lookalike or a 2% lookalike or a 10%, how many more people can I find that's similar to that? And that's how lookalikes work. When you go broad, Facebook actually goes to the pixel to do something similar. So that now effectively becomes your custom audience. So when you're doing male 25 to 15, you've got no lookalikes or anything involved. Facebook then goes to the pixel and says, right, what are the commonalities of people aged this or based on your targeting? And then it tries to create a lookalike based on that. So that's why broad targeting works so well when your pixel is mature. And that's why people struggle when either they don't have a pixel with mature data, which means a lot of traffic and a lot of spend on it, or they don't have their offer, their lander, and everything already locked in. And that's why we spend so much time going through the basics of building those foundations, because when you come to this point and you're looking to scale up, it's easier to do when you've got a lot of data to back you up and be able to fall back on, because then all of a sudden broad audiences work better, 10 or 20% lookalikes will work better, and some of the bigger interest groups work better, because Facebook's always segmenting. It's always trying to find those pockets of audiences. And then related to that is why when you have a creative and an offer that's working so well, part of the reason why it fatigues is because Facebook's gone into a smaller segment of your 10 million, 20 million, 50 million audience and found a small pot. Now, a small pot could be 100,000, could be 1 million people that are going to find that offer resonates with them. And that's why we keep the creative process going, because you can go and sample this in the street. If you go to your local mall or high street or whatever it is, and go and survey people based on your offer, find people that meet your demographic, survey 100 people, maybe 5, 10, maybe 15, 20 people are motivated by your offer. The other 80 or so are not. And that's why we come up with the 5W avatar, to really sink into what those different angles and hooks are, so we can keep diving and swapping and changing on those different angles to keep our message fresh. So, where I started off talking about the data, the pixel, and how that's passed through, that's a huge part of finding your ideal prospect, but it's only half the equation, because you can absolutely find the right prospect. And I would argue it's far easier to find the right person on Facebook than it is to give them the best offer, because then you need to know what their mindset is, what's going to motivate them to look at your ad, to engage with your ad, click into your ad, go look at your lander, be more motivated to click into your cart page, be motivated to buy that product. So they're the kind of micro optimizations I then look for. And that's why it's so important to get your data right. So the data architecture, making sure you're not going and stretching yourself with having multiple pixels and going wild on pixel per category, per product, per audience, etc. Because the more you split that data up, the less data that Facebook is going to store at the pixel level, and the less it can optimize. So, going back to the question of, I've got a multiple category store, I want to, I've been told I should have a pixel per category or per audience. The more that you segment, the less Facebook has available to optimize for. What I would do is, my preference is to have one pixel on my store, but then use my audiences. So here now at the campaign level on the ad account, to optimize for those different things. What you can do, for example, is to create custom conversion events based on a category. And you could say that this custom conversion event only fires when the customer buys a product from that category. And then Facebook will learn and say, right, this is the type of profile that buys this type of category. And therefore, because you're optimizing for that, it'll go and find more people like that. I would prefer to do that than have 5 or 10 pixels on a site, because that also starts to play around with policy and what's acceptable and how Facebook sees you. Because the thing is, the more you stretch the setup of Facebook, so the pages, the pixels, the ad accounts and stuff like that, the more you start entering into the black hat territory that proper black hat Facebook marketers use. So if you are in a position where your ads are getting disapproved, you're losing ad accounts, potentially you lost your BM, sometimes it's just down to not following best practice in terms of architecture as well. So yes, there's a performance side of getting your pixel architecture right, but there's also the policy side as well, and making sure your ads continue to operate. Now, there may be edge cases where sometimes it's better to have 2 pixels. For example, in what we teach, we always talk about a backup pixel and a main pixel and how you manage that with your different ad accounts. But that's a different thing that's related to risk management. But this is more, I'm looking at this in terms of performance and saying that the more data that one pixel can hold, the more flexibility you have in your strategy that's right for you. There's nothing wrong with having more than one ad account. Like, one of the common reasons for having more than one ad account is, for example, regional based. I've, for example, at the basic level, had one that's in the North American time zone, one that's in the European time zone, and one that's kind of East and Far East time zone, because that helps the optimization for the ad account. That makes sense. In other cases, I've split it based on tiers. So my tier 1 campaigns, which are my biggest markets, my tier 2 campaigns, which are kind of secondary markets, etc. Sometimes I'll split those into separate ad accounts. Sometimes it's split by language. So I've worked in functions where there's a different language team working on different ad accounts, English, French, German, Spanish, etc. That's another reason. Maybe sometimes it's also a billing thing as well, especially with big corporates. Sometimes they have regional departments and teams. That's another good reason to split your ad account. But what I try to avoid is going down that hacking route, because 9 times out of 10, it will come back and bite you at some point. So Facebook will update their policy. So, what you set up 12 months ago was working fine. Now you're going to end up with an ad account ban or a business manager ban just because now it's not the right thing to do. So it's best to kind of follow best practice, which is 1 pixel ideally per website, maybe 1 pixel as a backup, which I do recommend as well. And where possible, try not to have too many ad accounts so that you're not in the position where you're introducing too much risk. And then you manage your optimizations using conversion events and managing them within your campaigns within the ad account as well. That makes sense to you. I'll tell you how you have on the pixel, and obviously anything else you guys want to. Hello, can you hear me now? Apologies, my laptop decided it was a good time to switch networks, which was really inconvenient. Apologies for that. So I'm just going to say, hopefully that makes sense. I'll take your questions now to go through explaining any of that related to your setup. Ask them in the group as well, the Q&A calls as much as possible. But really, this is about de-risking potential problems. And I just want to remind you how important it is to bear in mind that anything that is working now won't always work in 3 to 6 months' time when it comes to policy. I've seen so many occasions where people are like, yeah, but 6 months ago, this was fine. Everyone was doing it. That may be the case, but as people start to exploit loopholes, then Facebook fix them, then you get knocked out and your ad account goes, your business manager goes, your personal profile goes, and people are like, oh, what did I do? I didn't do anything bad. Well, you probably didn't do anything bad 6 months ago, but now it's against policy. We as an agency are completely always trying to remain on top of it. For many of you guys, you're just so busy running on your business. I would just say, just try and avoid anything that's kind of in between or gray hat. That's what we're here for, is to support you on those questions as well. Let's go through the questions. So Arthur, say the main account where the pixel is created is disabled. Is the pixel in jeopardy if you can't recover the main account from being reinstated, even if you're running it successfully in your backup ads account? So that's why my recommendation and what we teach in the BPM method is your ad account and your pixel, that's going to be the one collecting the data. The pixel is not the ad account that you run your ads on. So if in the setup that I recommend, your ad account 1 should just run some basic page post engagement campaigns, $1, $2, $3, $5 a day. Just select a few posts for it to promote. Keep that pixel safe. Then share that pixel to another ad account, and that's where you start to run your ads. Because then when that ad account gets banned, you don't lose access to that pixel. The problem is in your scenario, if you've completely lost the ad account, you can no longer share that pixel. So you might have it shared already somewhere else, but that's it. If that new ad account goes down, you can't share it. And unfortunately, that data is lost unless you can get the ad account back. So that's definitely a big risk as well. Hey, Robin, does that mean if I want to scale up one of my campaigns, I go broader, choosing only demographics and age, not anything else? Facebook will automatically target similar people by reading the existing data from Pixel, hence giving me larger audience. It's not a black and white thing. It's not like the only way to scale up is go broad and mature your Pixel. This is just one scaling strategy. There are so many ways to scale up, but this is a fairly safe one because when you've built up your Pixel data, plus your avatar, you've done your creative testing, your landing page is optimized, your BEA plus V, bid times estimated action rate plus user value, score is as high as it can be. There's so many elements that go into this, and I'll probably do a separate part on how to scale up successfully with this as well. But it's not, the message I want to get across is this is not to scale up, you need to do this. This is one opportunity to use scale up with a strong pixel and be able to go broad, where you've already done the work in training up the pixel, maturing the data inside, And then you can actually go broader on the audiences and let Facebook's algorithm, let Facebook's machine learning take over. So you're not worried as much about audience testing. You're spending your time on the creative, the offer, the landing page, and the funnel. And that's where scaling comes up.